Hibulb Conversations welcomes Dawn Houle as our guest today. Dawn shares how an unexpected educational opportunity led to experiences and possibilities that are still unfolding. By simply keeping an open mind and saying yes to the next big adventure, Dawn's career has taken many directions while staying grounded in supporting Native communities. Hi, and welcome to Hibulb Conversations. I'm Mytyl Hernandez, and today we're here with Dawn Houle. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so happy to see you and sit with you.
Yes, this is a pleasure.
Thank you. We'd love to start by getting to know you. If you want to tell us a little bit about your background, we can start with where you were born and raised.
Sure, I was born in Denver, Colorado because of the Indian Relocation Act. My parents were relocated to Denver. I grew up on the Rocky Boy Indian Reservation in Chippewa Cree. So we moved after many years in Denver and moved back to the reservation.
And where's the reservation located?
North Central Montana.
Okay.
So we're 30 miles from the Canadian border, from Alberta.
Okay, tell me about your parents.
Yeah, my mother's amazing. Well, so my dad. My mother's the founder of our tribal college. So her and my aunt started this journey of higher education, and still to this day, it's one of the biggest employers and educators within the entire state, and they were one of the first.
Wow.
So she's a grad from University of Washington. She has her PhD from there, so she's a pretty big rock star in the world of Indian country, at least giving back to our tribe. And then my dad was a Vietnam veteran, and he spent his life on the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation. So I'm Chippewa from both sides, from my mom's side and then my dad's side. So that's where the Houle comes from.
Okay.
That's a Chippewa name from Turtle Mountain.
And do you have any siblings?
I do. I have two younger sisters. One's a truck driver. She owns her own truck driving business. And then the other one's an electrician where she did her training here in Seattle.
Wow.
So I know we're male-dominated industries, all three of us. And then I have a older sister who lives in Phoenix and works for the Gila River Indian Reservation. So kind of a sprinkling of family all over.
And where did you go to school?
For undergrad, I went to University of Montana. So I have a forestry degree. I was the first tribal member from the Chippewa Cree tribe to actually get a forestry degree. And then I went to St. Martin's University and got my MBA.
Okay.
So right here in Olympia.
And what about elementary school, middle school, high school?
Oh, that's a journey.
Tell me about it.
So definitely Denver is where I started preschool. My mother was the Indian director, the Denver Indian Center director while she was going to school. When she decided to move us back to Montana, she did a little stint in Santa Fe. And so I still vividly remember going to this Indian arts, nothing but Indian arts in Santa Fe, preschool, learning all these things, or school, I don't know what grade I was. And then eventually we ended up I went to school on the reservation when it wasn't even a Indian school yet, it was still state ran. And then now it's a Indian owned and ran school, a partnership with the state, with the tribe. And then probably 6th grade, my mother said, okay, we're done with this school because it wasn't Indian ran yet. You're going to Havre, Montana, which is 30 miles away from our reservation. So it was me and my cousin, one other black kid and an Asian, and then all white. So it was interesting. So that journey was a bit of an eye opener because when you're around nothing but natives and then you are plunged into truly a different culture, and then we were poor. So let's start with that.
And that was middle school.
That was middle school.
The meanest
of it all. And when we were on the free lunch program, they gave us this bright blue lunch ticket, and it meant we were on the free lunch program. So what do you think happened to Dawn Houle? Tease, because we were on the free program. And all the kids all these non-Indians all had the white ticket. And it was a punch system. I thought, oh my goodness. So I was like, well, I got fed. I didn't care.
Yeah, because it's a far journey to school. Yeah.
Oh, for 30 miles one way. We're in the snow. So I was like, oh my God. So, but when I turned 16, I was like, okay, I had enough of this. This is an interesting world. I need to go explore the world. So I moved 5 hours to Billings, Montana, and stayed with my godparents, and ended up graduating from Billings West. So I have this very interesting, which of course I love being in charge of my life. So I was like, hello, 16, I need to move. Goodbye.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
Yeah. A big explorer, Billings, Montana. Yeah.
It was the beginning.
It was the beginning, yes. But I love that journey because I got to stay with my aunt that was my dad's oldest sister, and just get to really experience a different side of my family that I didn't grow up with. So which I appreciated because she's no longer here, and so I got to spend some quality time with her in high school.
Fond memories.
Oh.
So after high school, how did you decide where you were going to go to college and what you were going to study?
Because I graduated from Billings West, and my best friend was like, I'm going to Bozeman, Montana. I said, okay, so am I.
Me too.
No plan. Oh yes, here I go. But I wanted to be an engineer, and MSU had a really good engineering program. They have one of the best. So I was like, oh, easy, no problem. Not a problem. There's nothing that's gonna stop me. Physics. I grew up on an Indian reservation. They're not offering physics to nobody anywhere probably in the entire state in high school. So I get there and I'm in class, and I thought, how am I going to pass this class? I can't even understand anything that this man is telling me. And he goes, oh, by the way, I got my PhD because I created the H-bomb. He's teaching me physics 101, and this man built the H-bomb. And I thought, this is a path that I'm going to have to change. So I just happened to go to the American Indian Science and Engineering Society conference my freshman year, and I was thrown for a loop because I was going to lose my scholarships if I didn't pass this class. So I meet this gentleman from Portland, and he says, you're a science major? And I said, yeah, I'm an engineer. I want to be an engineer. Didn't even know what kind of engineer. I just want to be an engineer. So
just like the way it sounded.
Exactly. I was like, oh, rolls off the tongue. Yes, I'm smart. And so he says, well, do you want to be a forester? And I said, what? I don't know anything about flowers. And he said, forest, not florist. And I'm like, oh, trees? Again, no, I don't know
anything about trees.
Exactly. I was like, we're putting in a vase. What are we doing with these trees? And so he goes, no, we have a lot of money. I work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. He says, if you switch your major, we will pay for everything. I was like, sure, tell me more about this. Yeah.
Free money, I will learn about trees.
Do I have to take physics? He said, no. He goes, but it is a science. You're going to have to take a lot of science. I said, well, that's no problem. And so I signed up that day, switched my degree because they offered me free money. And then they said, well, we'll even send you to different reservations across the United States to go do summer internships.
That's amazing.
So the forestry program is a 5-year program because you're mandated to do these. At the time you were mandated. I don't know if it's still the same, but you had to go and actually do field work. And so I worked for the Umatilla Reservation during the summer. I worked for the Yakima Reservation one summer. And I worked in the Portland regional office with Bureau of Indian Affairs one summer as well. So it was really good exposure to different tribes, different forests, and of course I was like, yes, send me anywhere. You're paying me to do this? Yes.
That's amazing.
So even in my undergrad, I really got to explore, did I really want to be, a forester, not a florist? And
or either.
And so I became a certified firefighter. I fought fire for probably, 15 years. Wildland fire. I tried housing, whatever. Residential, thank you. I was like, oh no, it's claustrophobic and dangerous. Like, no, as if firefighting is not. But
yeah, in the wild.
Yeah, so that was kind of my undergrad experience, or at least getting into that degree, and it's been paying me back ever since. So my world is old white men with a sprinkle of very educated Indian men, so I know only men, which most of them became tribal leaders. They're now in their professions at a very high within the federal government. So sometimes I'll pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, it's Dawn. What do you know about this?
Yeah.
And so that network has really been very beneficial to my current efforts.
Who would have known?
I know, forestry.
And then tell me about your MBA and how you decided to get to St. Martin's.
Sure. So I applied for a job in Washington, D.C. I had been the forest manager at Quinault for quite a while, and I was the forest manager at my tribe as well. And I did a little stop at Yakima, which I loved. I applied for this job in D.C., wanted this job. It was perfect, everything I had been doing with, interagency agreements, because I did a bunch of those in both states that I was in, Montana and Washington. And I lost out. I did not get picked. And I was like, what? I don't like no.
Yeah,
This does not feel good.
No.
And I knew the guy who had gotten the job, and he got it because he had a master's. I signed up to St. Martin's University that day and I was like, what? Do I have to take a test to get into graduate school? Can I just show up?
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of drove. I thought I'll never miss out on a job again because because of education. So, but at the time at Quinault, we were averaging probably $35 to $40 million a year in revenue on timber sales. And then the minor forest program was probably another $1 million.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm managing quite the enterprise here.
Yeah.
What do I know about business, But in the meantime, I'm negotiating with banks and getting financing and loans and bonding for the small businesses who were doing the minor forest products. So minor forest products, back to florist, was bear grass. And Quinault has one of the best bear grass in I think, the United States.
Wow.
So bear grass is that little sprig of green in floral arrangement. So full circle, florist arrange coming back. So. And then they did cedar shakes for roofs and mushroom picking and that kind of thing. And so we actually had like 12, 13 different little small companies running this great program, employing people doing, other forestry work. So I thought I need to go and learn a little bit more about how do we really expand and grow these enterprises on Indian reservations when you're in the middle of nowhere. So that's what triggered that adventure.
That's amazing. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Hibulb Conversations. Welcome to the Hibulb Cultural Center and Natural History Preserve, where you'll discover the journey of the Tulalip tribes. Our interactive displays introduce you to the legacy of the Tulalip people told in our words and voices. A journey for all to experience. Welcome back to Hibulb Conversations. With us today, Dawn Houle. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So after your MBA, what did you do?
I found out I was pregnant.
Oh,
with my first.
I feel like we missed
a whole step. Yeah.
So let's talk about your MBA.
It produced a child.
Didn't know it was possible.
Yes, exactly.
So you lived. Yeah. So you lived in this area, in the Seattle or Olympia area, while you were doing your MBA?
I did. So I lived in Lacey, Washington, and then I still was working 30 hours a week at Quinault, transitioning my forest manager job to one of their tribal members who happened to have a forestry degree, which was mandatory to have a degree to be in those leadership positions. And so it was really gratifying to be able to hand the torch off to a tribal member, and that's the whole point. You should be replacing yourself if you're working for another tribe, in my opinion. In the meantime, one of our tribal members got inspired by my career in forestry, and she became another. So we had two foresters in that time, and so I thought that was a nice touch to our community, or to at least my influence on other women to be in this field. But I decided I was going to switch careers and get into finance. I don't have a finance degree, I have a forestry degree. All I had was an MBA. And so I got offered an internship with D.A. Davidson, which is a investment firm, so I was going to be a finance advisor, and did all of this. And I would take all these classes, and I worked in the Columbia building, the big tall black one downtown, right on the top floor, and had a great view. And I was like, oh, this is the life. Yes, I'm going to make a bunch of money. Yeah. And they're like, okay, you need to take the Series 7 to to be a financial advisor. Easy. It's an 8-hour exam. I fell asleep.
I would have too.
Multiple times. And I thought, something's wrong with me. I am sick. I need to go to the doctor. Didn't know I was pregnant during this whole time, trying to study and passing out or whatever, falling asleep because I'm building a baby. So I ended up walking away from that position. But prior to it, I had brought them, I don't know, $50-60 million client, a tribal client, because I knew the forester and called, and they had just won this big water settlement in the state of Idaho. And so I got ostracized. Nobody in that office would talk to me. And I thought, okay, non-Indians, that's not enough money. And so I said that. I said, so 56 million is not enough? And I said, we've never had somebody ever not pass the Series 7 and bring in a client like this. They don't like you because you're doing something that has never been done before. I was like, well, that's what I do.
They just clearly don't understand Indian country.
Yeah. But I wrote a business plan to actually go out and do more of this money management, just working in Indian country. And I couldn't get the leadership at that time, I don't know who's there now, to really endorse the effort, which within 2 or 3 years, thankfully, a native finance company ended up doing the exact model that I'd already put in place. And I thought, darn it, I should have just went and did it myself, but couldn't pass that test because I was building a baby.
Tell me about your family.
Sure. So I have a 17-year-old son who was born here in Seattle and then went to your guys' Tulalip Child Care Center, which I love. They did a wonderful job. His name is Parker Booth. He's named after my great-grandfather, who was actually the signature of our executive order for our reservation, John Parker. And then the Booth name is Milo's last name. And I waited 8 years. So I thought, okay, this is a lot. And then decided I need a girl. And we were fortunate enough to have a girl, and so her name's Madzi Galea Booth. It means flower in Tsimshian. So her dad is Tsimshian from the only Indian reservation in Alaska, so the Metlakatla Indian Reservation. So it's been really interesting to learn about their culture, which is so 180 of being a Plains Indian. So the only thing maybe we eat similar is the deer, and even theirs is a different breed of deer. But it's our journey has been really interesting as a family. Milo's the National Director of Transportation.
At what point did you meet Milo then?
So my spouse is actually a forester, and he went to Oregon State. And when you're a double minority in an all-male dominated field, you immediately get put to the leadership roles, which fits my personality. I was on the Intertribal Timber Council executive board when I was at Quinault. And so Mylo was also I don't think he was on the board, but he was part of the Intertribal Timber Council. And when there's, again, male-dominated, mostly white, I gravitated towards the Indians that had forestry degrees. And so the executive director at Yakima also, he had just finished his master's in forestry, so he was Native. Mylo was Native. There was one female from Milo's tribe as well. So there was a handful of us. We were the minorities in this field. So we were just friends. We were just colleagues. And then I left forestry, and he was here in the Seattle area doing work or whatever. We just kept hanging out, and so we started dating. We already knew each other.
Just made sense.
It just made sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after your MBA, you had a baby.
Yes.
Okay. And then what? So tell me about that journey, this next leg.
Yes, I know. And I thought, I can stay home. Easy. I lasted 4 months. I thought, this is not for me. Like, somebody needs
Had
to
you already
help
bought
with
your
this.
house in Seattle?
We had already bought our house in Seattle, and I thought, I need to figure out the next steps here. I can't be a financial advisor. I can't pass that test because they apparently got to stay awake.
Weird.
Weird, God. And they don't do that type of exam anymore. Now it's broken up. So
Makes
it's like,
sense.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody should be taking a test for 8 hours. And so Milo actually saw you guys had advertised here at the tribe for a grant writer. And I was like, I know how to manage grants. I don't know how to write them.
Could figure it out.
I could figure it out, but I said, I know self-governance, and it was in the Office of Tribal Self-Governance. And I said, well, maybe it's not all grant. I'll apply. So I throw my name in the hat. I get interviewed, and sure enough, they needed more help on the self-governance side with the overlay of some grant options. And I don't think I ever wrote a grant for you guys. I know I didn't.
Yeah.
So anyways, so what that turned into is Lillian was here, and I worked with her in the self-governance office. And so you guys were doing some takeover of different programs, so I helped, and I had negotiated already quite a few tribal compacts as a forester, because the chairwoman at Quinault, Pearl Campbell-Ballard, the former chair, she's like, we're taking over forestry. We're taking all of natural resources. Of course you should be on the negotiation team. I was like, exactly.
Yeah,
What are
put
we
me
doing?
on. Yeah. I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. And we had great attorneys. But I love that experience of being able to be at the table and really, from an operational standpoint, be able to advise of what this would look like if we took over these different programs. And so I got to use that same experience here when I worked with Lillian in your grants and tribal office, or your tribal self-governance office. And then there was talk from Hank Gobin, who wanted to build a museum. I was like, great, that sounds fun.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And he's like, well, you're going to do it. I was like, okay, what are we doing? And at the time, Mel Sheldon was the chair, and Glenn was the vice chair, Glenn Gobin. And they had said, well, let's start a foundation. I said, okay. So I think they gave us, was me and Sam Davis. Sam was the admin at so he wasn't even part of the crew. He was shared resources. And he was just he showed up every day. So it was like, you're winning the race right there. You're an Indian on your own reservation. You're showing up every day. He was eager to learn. And so I said, well, let's do this. So we started, I think the tribe gave us $1,200. We applied to IRS and created the Tulalip Foundation, and then just kept creating this different strategies of how are we going to build the museum. There was a heritage grant that the state of Washington had published. Nobody had finalized the documents to actually apply for the money. So I was like, easy. Filled the form out, poof, $20-some million shows up. And they're like, what? What did you do? I said, well, you said go raise some money. So we raised that. I created a gifting program with the payroll people. So especially if you're a per cap tribe, needed a tax deduction. We got some amazing gifts right in the beginning, which I think are still on your wall, of the original donors, which are your own tribal members. So it was just a fun adventure. Yeah. And so I got hired to do one thing, and then ended up, building and helping you guys build this beautiful endeavor. So.
And how long were you with Tulalip?
A little over 3.5 years. I think it was 3.5 years.
And then what did you do?
Well, Obama got elected. And so I was like, whew, I don't like being told no by the government. Why do they keep telling us no? And again, that self-governance work of like, nope, you can't do that. Nope, you can't do that. It's like, maybe I should go work for the government and figure out what's the Rubik's Cube solution here, why they keep telling tribes no. And I wanted to work for that president. Yeah. So I applied with the Indian Health Service to work in the Office of Tribal Self-Governance again, to help negotiate and be a tribal advocate within the Indian Health Service to negotiate compacts. I was like, oh, easy. It's a formula, I already know it, easy. Well, as you know, when you get into the jobs, you get assigned different things. So I got to report on how many dead Indians every week were dying. And I said, what hell did I just walk into? Yeah. This is too much. I can't keep
It's heavy.
It's heavy. I was like, and I had to publicly.
I'm a florist, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a florist. What are you doing? So I thought, this is too much. I cannot. So then they said, well, let's move you over to report on the insular areas. And the United States has various insular areas that we support financially and with health care. And then as a tribal person sitting there, as the only tribal person in this room of very accomplished and foreign entities for those, well, they're domestic foreign, talking about how much money that we were giving them, I thought the injustice is just wrong. We're over here supporting 7 different areas, which yes, they probably need it, but in the meantime, we're barely getting half of a dollar of federal resources that are treaty right. And I thought, this is not my scene. I cannot work for Indian Health Service. But I lasted 11 months. And at the time, your tribal member, Tracy Stevens, just became a political appointee working for the Obama administration at the National Indian Gaming Commission, not the association, that's the nonprofit. And so I kind of followed her career. I mean, we knew each other from here. And I applied to become a policy analyst at the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs. And I thought, I can't keep reporting on how many dead Indians. That's not my scene. And I was negotiating compacts, but when there wasn't a lot of activity, then you go fill in these other responsibilities. And so I ended up getting the policy analyst position in the Asia office, working for the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, because I thought, I moved all the way to DC. I need to be at the highest rung I can be, which again, fit my personality.
Right.
So Tracy gets confirmed, and so I leapfrogged all in 3 years from 3 different agencies. And I thought, that's what you should be doing when you work for the government. Go explore what all the biggest need is and how you can give back. And so Tracy asked if I wanted to go work at Indian Gaming, and I was like, absolutely. So I became the Deputy Chief of Staff and then eventually the Chief of Staff for the National Indian Gaming Commission and finished that out.
That must have been fun.
It was so much fun, especially just to be in the same room with decision makers that, really changed the trajectory of Indian programs, Indian self-governance, and anything to do with just supporting us, because that president was so, welcoming of, yes, let's be respectful to the first people of this country. So it was exciting to be part of all that. And then the 16 new regulations that we pumped out to help tribes with the biggest economic driver in history, which all came from Tracy's efforts and, our team. So.
Wow. So you worked in DC for how many years?
I lasted all the way to the last year of the Obama administration.
Okay.
And then Tracy she knew she was bouncing because you're politically tied to the current standing president. And so I was tethered to her, and we knew we were both going to get out of the federal government. It wasn't my scene after that. I was like, how do you continue this without the right formula? And so I ended up starting my own company because I still had a standing network. He still had a year left on his second term, and then I got a tribal client. Best reason to start a business. You actually get paid and you can go do your work. And so I ended up establishing Sunsinger Consulting.
So after all your years working in DC, what are some of and with Tulalip, what are some of your favorite experiences?
Yes, you guys treated me very, very well while I was here. I made excellent friends while I was here and got invited to go to a private meeting with the Dalai Lama. So it was a private meeting just with 40 tribal leaders, our tribal people. We all dressed in our traditional outfits, and I just happened to have mine because who doesn't?
Yeah.
So that was really an interesting and very memorable experience, just to go, and we performed for him, or at least you guys did the performing. All I did was walk with you, but because he was trying to learn about the different tribes here.
A little cultural exchange.
And the other memorable moment is Maria Zacchius. Marie, yes, was in DC, and I think I was still at Indian Health. I had just gotten the Indian Health Service, and the Obama, no, I had not. So I was still working with you guys, and Obama had gotten elected, and they had an extra ticket, and I just happened to be in DC at the time. They said, do you want to go to the inaugural ball? I was like, of course I do. Who would say no to this?
And I have a ball gown.
Yes, exactly. Poof.
Who doesn't?
Yes, in my bag, yes. So I got to go with Mytyl Hernandez and Marie and just be part of all of that excitement. I mean, it was just, an experience of a lifetime.
Yeah.
To be part of all of that and the main city of change, and it was overwhelming.
That's beautiful.
Yes, it was. So I'm very grateful to your tribe to always including me. Even if I was like, hey, here walking by the street, and hey, do you want to go? Of course.
Right place at the right
Yes.
time.
The universe works in magical ways.
Yeah, you could write a book, right place at right time,
I know.
your whole career.
It's been fun, yes.
Yeah.
I've been exposed to some pretty interesting things of just being in the right place and talking to the right people, or being friendly.
Being friendly.
Yes,
Yeah.
being kind.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Hibulb Conversations. Hibulb Cultural Center Gift Shop. Discover something special and shop our unique collection of jewelry, art, home decor, apparel, books, and children's items. Choose from unique merchandise and handcrafted items with something for everyone at the Hibulb Cultural Center. Welcome back to Hibulb Conversations. So happy to have Dawn Houle with us today.
Yes, thank you.
So I understand that now you have your own company. Will you tell us about that?
Sure. So for the last 8 years, maybe 9 now, I've been working on economic development with a variety of different tribes across the United States. And I'm fortunate that the majority of my clients, they've actually been with me since I started. And I think that's a good testament to either the level of trust or the level of effort or what we're actually doing. I don't do a good job of advertising. A lot of stuff that I do is confidential, and if I were to actively say what I'm doing, it could level or change the playing field that I'm in. So luckily, my clients are reaching out to me, especially the new ones, which is really nice. So a lot of the things that I do when I do travel is building that network, understanding what the client needs, but it's been fun. I'm doing a lot of different things, so which I can highlight a little if you'd like.
Yeah, tell me everything.
So I'm actually selling 2 companies right now. So I do a little bit of mergers and acquisition stuff, and they're game changer type of companies. So one, I have a client that owns the only Native American owned wine company licensed in all 50 states. It's won the top 11 best tasting wine in 2022. And so I love what tribes are doing also. It's like they're not afraid of the stigma of being in the alcohol industry, and they're like, yes, we need to be in all 50 states. Why would you not? So we're in 7 countries, so it's called Twisted Cedar Wine. So I'm actually selling that company. They want to move in a different direction, which is fine. And then I'm working with a non-Indian group that does federal contracting, and they're the only way they can grow the business is actually to sell to a tribe because of our set-aside limits. But for other clients, I'll do some policy work, whether it be in housing, because I'm in DC, so it's easier for me to go knock on doors and to use my network to move the needle a little bit faster. But for other clients, I do tribal assessments on economic development. What are some of those assets and the low-hanging fruit that you may not be aware of? So I come in with a fresh set of eyes. I use data analytics to actually take out the risk and the unknown. So if you wanted to get into, let's say, automotive manufacturing of whatever part, well, is it a flooded market? I can use the data that I use, and I've partnered with a local. They're a artificial intelligence data analytics company that's tribally owned, which is a good friend of mine. Yeah. He used to be a professor at Evergreen. So again, Washington just keeps coming back to me, all of the networks that I've built here. And so it really takes the guessing out of what tribes do, because it's risky to spend money and not know what you're going to do. So we can break down the number of jobs, the number of tax revenue, if you have a tax compact, which again, back to that wonderful compacting, and really exerting your sovereignty in different markets. And so I use that for economic assessments, and a lot of times capacity is a big issue with Indian country, especially workforce. How do you find people to go and get into the automotive industries or the petroleum industry or whatever industry you want to be in? And so and usually tribes are getting grant funds to do a lot of the assessments that I do, from economic assessments to tourism assessments, and then they keep me on to actually implement. And so where I feel I'm a master is from the concept to the contract. I build the entire infrastructure. Wow. So if they don't have a board, or they have a weak board, or they have weaknesses within their board of being able to get across the finish line, I help them increase their presence, and whether it be policy-wise or in the federal government side or within the state or whatever industry they want to get into. And so it's rewarding. And then, even just the legacy that I've left on the I-5 corridor it's still here. And I love that I can walk away knowing I did the best job I can. There's tribal members that are being employed. They're making money that's not gaming and related. And so I'm building a 40-acre industrial park right now with the tribe. I'm doing a tourism assessment for another one, which will build an entire economy around all tourism, which is fascinating because there's ecotourism now, which then again, my forestry degree coming back to me, that we can actually do these beautiful experiences working with non-Indians where we have to bring in different sources of revenue. I'm working on expanding housing initiatives with urban Indians, given that the majority of us have to move off the reservation to work, to find places to make a living. And so one of my clients, the Cedar Band of Paiutes, they own Chinoa Fund, which is a down payment assistance program, again, licensed in all 50 states. And their whole goal, and it's not just for natives, but is to actually help low to moderate income people get into their first home, which I end up using their program. And I was like, yes, if I'm going to support tribes, I want to support them in every way that I can. Yeah. And so my business does a lot of strategic planning, even though it's, it's business assessments. Well, business assessments is exactly planning. How are you going to actually get the product to where you need to be, your product or service? You have to plan that out. How are you going to finance it? And because of my experience working with the federal government, I'm able to show them federal resources or private resources where, we can stack different opportunities to actually build and grow that industry that they want to be in. And so I help them navigate a federal system that is complicated, by all stretch of imagination. That's not easy. Even under a friendly administration that's changing things, you still have to know the opportunities and how do you apply, and if you get told no, what you do, which I love that. And I am helping a client right now that got told no by the federal government. And I was like, they're required to do this. Here's the 50 things they're supposed to be doing. They're like, oh, great, didn't know.
Ask again.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun. I'm in a lot of different industries, and so it keeps me busy and be creative, and again, helping tribes wherever they need it.
That's amazing. And I heard that you helped write a book.
I did. So during the pandemic, there was a group of us. So I love education. I considered a PhD, but that seemed like a big commitment because I'd have to give up what I do for a living. So I ended up doing the Dartmouth program. They have a minority business program, and it's it's a 3-year program. I only did 2 years because the pandemic hit. And so for a summer, you go into their classes, and you're just a minority. That could be a gay person, that could be a woman, that could be any color of the rainbow. And so I got into this program, and Shea Moisture at the time was my sponsor. You had to be sponsored by a corporation. And they paid $10,000 for me to go for each summer that I was there. And they had never worked with a Native ever. And because Shea Moisture is a Black woman-owned business. It was. Unilever bought them after I got into their program, and which is great, which just blew up their company and grew it to where it needed to be. So I was the only Native in an all-Black curly hair company, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I ended up in a commercial in Essence magazine. And I thought, of course I did, you know. But because of the network that I built over those summers with all these different minority businesses, during the pandemic, we all band together and said, let's write a book about our experience about business success secrets. And one of the leads on the book, she just happened to know a publisher, and then she's like, okay, you know, we're doing this.
Here we go.
Here we go. And we had about 2 weeks. They had a set of questions. We all had to answer the same questions. And so we're all a contributing author of our own business within that book. And we ended up getting picked up by USA Today as a bestseller, as well as Wall Street Journal. And so it was just a very interesting time to be involved in that. And then the book didn't get published because of the pandemic, ran out of book glue.
Ran out of everything.
And I was like, book glue? I was like, okay. So about a year later, after we had already digitally released it, then we were able to do an actual physical book after they found the book glue. So I was like, interesting. So it was a good peer into a world that, you know, just seamlessly operated. And then all of a sudden you get these implementation blips because there's no glue.
Yeah.
So
you just cannot plan for that.
I know. So then the supply chain, I was like, I need to look into this. You know, how do we make it better for everybody? But yeah, so the book, it was an amazing experience. You know, I give them away for free now because it's so long. It's called Business Success Secrets.
Oh, you have had so many interesting life experiences. What advice would you have for young people as they think about school or a career path?
I think the best advice I would give is just to say yes and to really dip your toe into whatever interests you. You know, if it's even a smattering of curiosity, go and ask. I think that's the biggest thing too, is what do you really do in a day? That kind of gives you a highlight about what's happening. And there's so many natives out there now that are in so many different spaces, whether it be movie production, script writing. So I actually, one of the contractors who works with me, he just published a movie in his own language. Wow. And you know, he's a PhD in whatever I should know this, but I don't. But I love also surrounding myself with people that I would, why do I need to know this guy is a movie, you know, producer and writer? And I was like, it's great. But we're working on some really cool things together because of him and that exposure. But I asked these questions, you know, I don't know that world. And so it's curious. I'd love to get more into the movie industry, but just being curious and asking. And if you don't know, you know, call me. Yeah. I will absolutely, I share my network all the time. I think the other thing is look at some of these tribal colleges. I mean, the Salish and Kootenai College just partnered with Yale University. I mean, they're doing some amazing things. I was just in Menominee a couple weeks ago. Their college is doing wonderful partnerships. So your 2-year, 4-year, whatever your journey is, even if it's a technical school, because workforce development is the biggest need in every Indian reservation, let alone in the United States right now. Wow. And so we have to build this capacity, and we can't keep relying on non-Indians or others to do our work. We have to build that, because at some point we're all going to go. Yeah. So, you know, we're not living forever. And so I'm a big advocate of let's just figure out your path. And as we know, there's struggles in Indian country and in society, but you know, hopefully finding those resources to help you move to the next rung. That's and being supportive of each other. It's so detrimental when we're either jealous or we take that negativity personally. You can't live somebody else's life, and hopefully you're strong enough and have a good network that if you're a young person, you know, dust it off and find your people that will uplift you, because it's tough. I have a 17-year-old, and the influence of other children or other people is profound. Yeah, you can't control a lot of that. So yeah, I'm dealing with this moving into a new journey in life, and I'm like, did we prepare him well enough? I don't know. We'll see. Good luck. No.
You'll find out.
Yeah. Have fun. So yeah, and I love being an advocate for young people. So again, if I can serve as a resource to your community, again, I'm available. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending time with us today.
Absolutely. This was a treat. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Hibulb Conversations. I'm Mytyl Hernandez. Until next time.